Elizabeth, you are one of those people who seems to engage people, who connects with people, and yet consistently the votes are not enough to deliver you the seat that you need in Parliament. Again, your suggestions for...
Well, first of all, in commenting on John's point, there are a couple of solutions, and that's one interesting one. If we go to proportional representation, then every vote will count, and that will increase people's sense of the efficacy of the vote, the levels of civic engagement. In terms of the votes, we're Greens, the question that Alison's asked very specifically about our party, we've increased our vote by leaps and bounds between 2004 and 2006, and then much more between 2006 and 2008. In fact, we were the only party that received more votes in 2008 than in 2006. Mr. Harper's Conservatives had 170,000 fewer votes in 08 than in 06. So you can say, well, for all of his strategies and getting more members, the Canadian public, we tend to gloss over that reality, that they got fewer votes. But they had targeted their messaging and targeted their efforts, knowing that if they telegraphed enough hardcore messaging to their base, that base would turn out and vote Conservative no matter what the weather was like that day, no matter the fact that he picked the voting day to be the day after Thanksgiving weekend, it wouldn't matter. But by dispiriting legions of Liberals with the Stéphane Dion not a leader attack ads, they got 700,000 fewer Liberals to vote. And fewer NDPers showed up too. And we had 270,000 more votes. We're just shy, really, in national terms, of the Bloc Québécois total vote, but the Bloc votes are all concentrated in Quebec. So the difference between no seats and 49 seats is not that we didn't get enough votes, Alison, it's where those votes were. And we're across the country and growing in strength in every region of Canada, and obviously very popular primarily with the young people who, millennials or however we describe them, have been not only non-voters. I met a young woman the other day who said to me she really was grateful for reading my book. And she said, until I read your book, I was an anti-voter. This isn't apathy. Rick Mercer describes Canadians' reaction to voting as being something like someone who's allergic to eggs being offered a menu that's scrambled, fried, or boiled. And they just say, well, I don't, there's nothing on that for me. We need to, in terms of solutions, yes, opening up political parties would be one way of doing it. I'd like to shut down a lot of the power of partisanship and political parties. The idea of political parties in Canada, and I didn't even know this until I was researching for my book, back in the 60s, when I was too young to vote, and some of you remember, if you went to vote and you saw your ballot in Canada, there were the names of the candidates, but their party affiliation wasn't on the ballot. The growth in the power of organized political parties to trump the common good, to trump pan-partisan cooperation. This is one thing that I really wanted to share with Canadians in my book is it was better just a decade ago. It was more productive and less partisan in the House of Commons in the 1980s. I was on staff with the Minister of Environment between 86 and 88. I was senior policy advisor. We negotiated the Montreal Protocol to protect the ozone layer. Canada was in the lead. We brought forward effective reductions on acid rain, which required the federal government to negotiate with each of the governments of the 7 eastern provinces. And we did that and then took that and forced the government of the US to agree to a 50% reduction in the pollutants that caused acid rain. And we did that with constant collaboration, cooperation. Part of my job as senior policy advisor was on almost a daily basis, depending on the file, to check in with the NDP environment critic and the Liberal environment critic to make sure they liked the strategy my boss had just chosen. We were always working in a nonpartisan way, and with the provinces. The Liberal government in Ontario was valiant on the acid rain fight, and they were our allies. We never sought to score political points off the other guys, except to say, we're making more progress on the environment, how are you doing? It was a friendly cooperation to deliver good policy. I didn't realize at the time that this was the Valhalla of environmental achievement, the Mulroney government. I really didn't see it at the time because there was so much more to do. But I think the fact that Canadians today, when I talk to young people, they find it almost impossible to imagine that kind of cooperation was the norm. And it was the norm. It's so bad now that when Maclean's did a feature on me, they actually said that I'd proven myself disloyal and untrustworthy because it was known that I briefed opposition party members when I worked for the Ministry of Environment. That was normal in Canadian democracy as recently as the early 90s. And the fact that we've lost that through excessive partisanship means one way or another, open up political parties or shut them down. But one way or another, political partisanship is strangling democracy in this country.
Yes.